coming out of genocide, coming out of complex trauma, eating disorders are pretty normal. And there's just been so many stories about how eating disorders have impacted survivors. I can think about some of my own experiences coming out of starvation and homelessness and tragic childhood, and the 60 scoop, and the craving for family, the trying to fill that hole, trying to have my family back. Sometimes I would do that through food.
University of Fraser Valley in BC has given Shirley Turcotte an honorary degree. She's not Native. She's a pretendian. We were going to make this a question, but right now I'm making this a declaratory statement that this woman is not Indigenous. She comes from a very troubled childhood. Her father apparently sexually abused her and her siblings, and she has a lot of trauma from that. And she ended up in foster care at the age of 14. She's not a 60 scoop survivor. Many white people who were in foster care erroneously believe they are Indigenous. They're not. Shirley Turcotte knows her family tree, though. She knows she's not Indigenous, and she knows she's a liar. She's also convinced her son, Jeffrey Schiffer, who runs Native Child and Family Services, that he too is Métis. He's not. He comes from her. They're both not Native. There's a pattern with these white women race shifters. They talk about their families of dysfunction and abuse and alcoholism and all these horrific forms of violence that they experience, and they attribute it to their Indigenous parent. And they have no Indigenous ancestry. What they're actually doing is stoking racism. They're stoking those fires of anti-Indigenous sentiments in this country. White women race shifters, you need to stop doing that. Now, here's her genealogy that was leaked to us from a Métis citizen who had access to the registry. And none of Shirley Turcotte's family are Métis. None of her family are Métis. She's a race shifter. Many in the Indigenous community in Toronto for a very long time have been saying Shirley Turcotte and her son Jeffrey are not Indigenous. Well, we have proof now that she isn't. And if anybody from that family would like to contact us, maybe we're missing some information on this genealogy. As far as we know, this is verified and true. But as I said, we are here to be corrected if we make mistakes. Jeffrey Schiffer runs the most important Native agency in the city of Toronto, the mandated child welfare agency for the Indigenous community. They have the power to take children from Native families. That's what he's in charge of. He's a fraud, just like his mother. How can anybody keep these frauds employed when their whole careers are based on lies? Shirley Turcotte and her son, Jeffrey Schiffer, are white people who attribute their trauma to an Indigenous identity and connecting it to Indigenous people. This has stoked, and it does stoke, Indigenous racism. We do not need white people stoking these fires. By the way, there is a petition calling for him to be fired. Please contact these two and tell them to stop perpetuating this stereotype of Indigenous people are inherently violent. This has to stop. This is unacceptable.